The mantis shrimp has one of the fastest attacks in the entire animal kingdom, and for years, scientists completely misunderstood it. Small, colorful, aggressive, interesting to divers, but not especially important to science. That assumption turned out to be very wrong, because hidden inside this animal is one of the most violent biological weapons ever discovered. When a mantis shrimp strikes its prey, the movement happens so fast that the human eye cannot see it. High-speed cameras reveal that its club-shaped claw accelerates through the water at speeds approaching 80 kilometers per hour, faster than most animals can even react. To put that into perspective, the strike accelerates with forces comparable to a .22 caliber bullet. But the speed alone is not what makes the attack so disturbing, because the mantis shrimp does not simply punch its prey. It changes the physics of the water itself. As the claw moves forward, it travels so quickly that the surrounding water cannot fill the space behind it. For a fraction of a second, tiny vapor bubbles form in the water. This effect is known as cavitation, and it normally occurs around high-speed ship propellers and industrial turbines. Moments later, those bubbles collapse, and when they do, they release a second burst of energy, a shockwave powerful enough to crack shells, stun prey, and generate a tiny flash of light underwater. Which means the mantis shrimp does not strike its prey once, it strikes it twice. First with the physical impact of the claw, then with a collapsing explosion of water. Even if the first hit misses, the second shockwave can still damage the target. For a creature only 10 to 18 centimeters long, the amount of force produced by this mechanism is extraordinary. The strike happens so quickly that researchers needed cameras recording tens of thousands of frames per second just to observe it properly. And when scientists finally slowed the footage down, they realized something unexpected. The mantis shrimp was not just unusually strong, it was operating with a biological design that seemed to break the normal limits of animal movement. For decades, this animal had been hiding in coral reefs all over the world, smashing shells, hunting crabs, and defending its territory with a weapon powerful enough to shatter aquarium glass. But the punch is only the beginning, because the mantis shrimp is not just one of the most powerful hunters in the ocean, it also possesses something even stranger, one of the most complex visual systems ever discovered in the animal kingdom. And once scientists began studying its eyes, they realized we might have been wrong about how animals see the world at all. For a long time, scientists believed they already understood how animals see the world. Humans see the world using 3 color channels, receptors, often called cones. Each one detects a different part of the light spectrum, red, green, and blue. By combining signals from these 3 channels, the brain can build the full range of colors we experience every day. Most animals actually see less than we do. Dogs, for example, only have 2 color receptors, which means their world contains fewer colors than ours. Many mammals share a similar limitation. From a human perspective, our vision appears relatively advanced, but that assumption began to fall apart the moment scientists examined the eyes of the mantis shrimp. Because this small reef predator does not have 3 color receptors, it can have up to 16. At first, that number sounds almost impossible. 16 separate channels for detecting color, each tuned to different wavelengths of light. To a human observer, it seems as if the mantis shrimp should experience a world overflowing with colors that we cannot even imagine. And in some ways, it probably does. Coral reefs already appear vibrant to human eyes, filled with reds, yellows, blues, and greens reflecting through clear tropical water. But to a mantis shrimp, that same reef may look completely different. Light bouncing off fish scales, coral surfaces, and drifting particles creates patterns of signals invisible to us. Colors may shift, pulse, or reflect in ways the human brain simply cannot detect. Yet color itself is only part of the story. The mantis shrimp can also detect polarized light, a property of light waves that humans are almost completely blind to. Some species can sense linear polarization, meaning they can see how light waves align in specific directions. Others can even detect circular polarization, a far rarer form of light reflection that almost no other animal can perceive. To the mantis shrimp, these signals may act like hidden information layered on top of the visible world. A fish's scales might reflect light differently depending on its angle. A rival shrimp might display polarized signals during territorial disputes. Some species even use these reflections to communicate with each other, sending visual messages that predators cannot easily see. It is almost like a private language made of light. When scientists first discovered the mantis shrimp's extraordinary eyes, the obvious conclusion seemed clear. With 16 color receptors and the ability to detect polarized light, this animal must possess the most powerful vision in the entire animal kingdom. But the deeper researchers studied it, the stranger the truth became. Experiments began to show that mantis shrimp did not process color the way humans do. Our brains compare signals from 3 receptors and combine them to distinguish millions of shades. The mantis shrimp appears to use a completely different strategy. Instead of blending signals together, its visual system may identify colors instantly by matching them to specific receptors. The result is not necessarily greater detail, it is greater speed. In other words, the mantis shrimp may not see a more colorful world than we do. It may simply recognize colors far faster than we can. And in the fast-moving chaos of a coral reef, where predators and prey react in fractions of a second, that difference could mean everything. Because when a mantis shrimp hunts, speed is not just an advantage. It is the difference between striking first or becoming the next target. For a creature only a few inches long, the mantis shrimp carries one of the most extraordinary weapons in the ocean. But not all mantis shrimp hunt the same way. Scientists divide them into 2 main groups, based on how they attack their prey. The first group is known as spearers. These species use long, sharp appendages that shoot forward like harpoons, impaling soft-bodied animals such as fish or worms before they have time to escape. It is a fast and efficient method, perfectly suited for hunting in the narrow burrows where many mantis shrimp hide. The second group is far more destructive. These are the smashers. Instead of spears, smashers possess a thick, club-shaped claw designed for impact. The end of this claw is reinforced with dense mineral layers, forming a biological hammer capable of striking with incredible force. Crabs, snails, and other armored animals that rely on their shells for protection suddenly find that protection shattered in an instant. The secret behind this weapon lies inside the limb itself. A mantis shrimp does not rely on muscle power alone. Inside the claw is a complex system of biological springs and locking structures. As the shrimp prepares to strike, muscles slowly load energy into these internal springs, bending specialized structures inside the limb. The claw locks into place, storing that energy like a compressed crossbow. Then, when the lock releases, the stored energy is unleashed all at once. The claw launches forward with astonishing acceleration, exceeding 10,000 times the force of gravity. In that instant, the limb moves so quickly that the surrounding water cannot react fast enough to fill the space behind it. The result is the same phenomenon engineers fear in ship propellers and turbines: cavitation. Tiny vapor bubbles form around the claw as it cuts through the water, and when those bubbles collapse, they release a violent burst of pressure. This means the mantis shrimp's attack has 2 phases. The first is the physical impact of the claw itself, powerful enough to smash through crab shells or fracture the armor of snails that evolved specifically to resist crushing predators. But a fraction of a second later, the collapsing cavitation bubble delivers a second shockwave through the water. Even if the claw does not land perfectly, that shockwave can still stun or injure the prey. It is a weapon system where the physics of the water itself becomes part of the attack. Divers and researchers have seen the results firsthand. Snail shells split open like cracked porcelain. Crab claws break apart in a single strike. In laboratory tanks, mantis shrimp have even been known to crack the glass of their aquariums if startled or provoked. For this reason, some public aquariums refuse to house smasher species at all. The risk of damage is simply too high for such a small animal. Yet, brute force alone does not explain the mantis shrimp's success. Plenty of predators rely on strength. Plenty of animals have evolved powerful jaws or crushing claws. The mantis shrimp is something different, because this animal is not just swinging blindly at anything that moves. It is watching, calculating, waiting for the exact moment when that devastating strike will be impossible to escape. And that is where the story becomes even stranger, because the mantis shrimp is not just a weapon. It is also an intelligent hunter. Power alone does not make a predator successful. In the crowded chaos of a coral reef, strength means very little without control, awareness, and timing. And this is where the mantis shrimp becomes far more interesting than its famous punch. Because beneath that armored shell is not just a weapon. There is a mind constantly watching its surroundings. A mantis shrimp rarely wanders randomly across the reef. Most species live inside carefully maintained burrows carved into coral, sand, or rock. These burrows act as both shelter and hunting station. From this narrow entrance, the shrimp observes everything that moves nearby. Small fish passing overhead, crabs exploring the sand, other mantis shrimp moving too close to its territory. It remembers these locations. Studies have shown that mantis shrimp can leave their burrow to explore nearby areas and then return precisely to the same entrance, even after complex movements across the reef floor. That ability requires spatial memory, the brain's capacity to build a mental map of the environment. But memory is only part of the story. When two mantis shrimp encounter each other near a shared boundary, they do not immediately attack. Instead, they often perform a series of threat displays. Their bodies rise slightly from the ground, their claws lift and spread. The animals circle one another slowly, almost as if each is evaluating the other's strength. This behavior is known as ritualized combat. Instead of instantly risking injury in a full fight, the shrimp exchange signals that help determine whether the conflict is worth escalating. If one individual appears stronger or more confident, the other may simply retreat. The entire confrontation ends without a single strike being thrown. For animals armed with one of the fastest weapons in nature, this restraint is surprising. It suggests that the mantis shrimp is capable of assessing risk and adjusting its behavior accordingly. Laboratory experiments have revealed more hints of this intelligence when researchers presented mantis shrimp with repeated patterns such as food appearing in certain locations. The animals quickly learned where to search. They could remember those locations later and return directly to them. In controlled tests, they also demonstrated the ability to solve simple problems, navigating obstacles to reach a reward. These are not the behaviors of a simple reflex-driven animal. They are signs of learning. Another unexpected discovery came from studying how mantis shrimp interact with their neighbors. Instead of treating every nearby shrimp the same way, individuals behave differently depending on who they encounter. A stranger approaching the territory often triggers aggressive displays, but a familiar neighbor one that lives in the next burrow may receive a far calmer response. In other words, the mantis shrimp can recognize individuals. That ability requires a level of memory and perception that scientists once believed was limited to far more complex animals. And then there are the eyes. Unlike human eyes, which move together as a pair, the mantis shrimp's eyes operate almost independently. Each eye sits on a flexible stalk, constantly scanning the environment with small, rapid movements. One eye may track motion on one side of the reef while the other examines objects in a completely different direction. Even more astonishing, each eye can measure depth and distance on its own. Humans require two eyes working together to perceive depth. The mantis shrimp does not, which leads to a strange realization. This animal is not just strong. It is not just fast. It is navigating the reef with a sensory system and awareness that function in ways we barely understand. For a long time, scientists believed something simple about life on Earth. The most advanced animals would also be the biggest and most complex. Large brains, large bodies, sophisticated behavior. Mammals were often placed at the top of that ladder. Animals like dolphins, wolves, and primates showed intelligence, coordination, and social behavior that seemed to represent the peak of biological design. Birds followed closely behind, with species capable of solving puzzles, building tools, and navigating thousands of kilometers during migration. In comparison, small marine creatures hiding inside coral reefs rarely received the same attention. They were usually described as simple organisms, driven mostly by instinct, reacting to their environment rather than understanding it. The mantis shrimp quietly destroyed that assumption, because inside this animal's small, armored body is a combination of biological systems that researchers are still trying to fully understand. It carries one of the fastest mechanical strikes ever recorded in the natural world. Its eyes contain one of the most complex visual systems known in any animal, and its behavior reveals a hunter capable of learning, remembering territory, recognizing rivals, and deciding when a fight is worth the risk. All of this exists inside a creature no longer than a human hand. The lesson hidden inside the mantis shrimp is not just about one strange crustacean. It reveals something deeper about the way evolution works. Nature does not design animals according to human expectations. Evolution is not trying to build the largest creature or the smartest one by our definition. It is trying to build the most efficient survivor, and sometimes efficiency leads to designs that seem almost impossible. The mantis shrimp did not evolve to dominate the reef through size or intimidation. Instead, it became powerful by refining very specific abilities. A strike so fast it turns water into a weapon. Eyes capable of detecting signals invisible to most other animals. A nervous system that allows it to evaluate threats, remember locations, and control territory. Each of these traits alone would make the mantis shrimp unusual. Together, they form something far stranger, a biological system that challenges our expectations of what small animals are capable of. The deeper scientists look into coral reef ecosystems, the clearer this pattern becomes. Many of the ocean's most remarkable creatures are not giant predators swimming through open water. They are small, highly specialized animals hidden among rocks, sand, and coral structures where evolution has had millions of years to experiment with unusual designs. The mantis shrimp is simply one of the most dramatic examples, and the strangest part is how long it has been there. Creatures like this have lived in the ocean for tens of millions of years, hunting along reefs and seafloors, while humans were still learning how to build boats. Entire generations of scientists, divers, and fishermen passed over them without realizing how extraordinary they were. Which raises a question that becomes harder to ignore the more we explore the ocean. If a creature this unusual could hide in plain sight for so long, what else might still be waiting below the surface? Because the deeper we look into the natural world, the more it becomes clear that Earth is filled with biological designs we are only beginning to understand. And if discoveries like this fascinate you, make sure to subscribe and stay with the channel, because some of the most unbelievable creatures on our planet are still waiting to be discovered.